Welcome to the special edition of the Federal, where we are trying to understand the budget presented a few hours ago by the Finance Minister, Nirmala Sitharaman. I have an eminent panel of panelists with me. How do you see this budget? What's your first reaction?
See, the first thing that I saw in the budget is that it covers almost everything. It's very comprehensive and it touches about almost every aspect of the different industries and different sectors. So I think it's very well laid out budget. And if you really look at the budget as to of course, you can always say that.
So when you say it's a very well laid out budget,
I've not seen the documents as yet.
Yeah, so we also heard the document. I mean, yes, heard the speech. But when you say it's a very well laid out budget with many things, but doesn't have any one big idea which you can carry back?
See, the thing is that, the three first goals that she mentioned is, one is aspirational India, okay, and the second is economic development, and the third is the caring society. And these three things are the three most important aspects in the society today, as you see it today. Now, when you look at aspirational India, she has looked at jobs and health and agriculture and rural development and so many things. And then economic development, again, she's touched upon even in entrepreneurship and MSMEs and the whole the skilling and reskilling and even for people who want to go abroad where there are jobs available abroad, and even creating more colleges, medical colleges, and even helping hospitals that are there, and then the third is caring society. I think that's what we need most. And yeah, she's touched about children.
We'll discuss more about that. To me, it looked more like a planning commission, a plan document, than more of a budget part A of the speech. But is there any big idea you saw in that?
Okay, as I said, part A, it looks very ambitious. For me personally, I feel it's going to be a challenge in terms of implementation. As much as it's comprehensive, I guess it's going to be a challenge in implementing whatever has been read out today. It's been well thought out in terms of a plan, but then execution is going to be a challenge.
Does it discuss that, so we know, while even before going into this budget, we know this economy is facing a lot of challenges. Right. So, for instance, we know the GDP growth has been lowest in last 11 years, investment lowest in 17 years, private consumption lowest in 7 years, manufacturing 15 years, agriculture growth lowest in 4 years, unemployment 45 years. Right. So, has the budget anywhere recognized these facts?
I think it has to an extent, because whatever has been laid out, it is going to provide a lot of employment opportunities in various areas. That's what I see. As I was listening to her, the points I was noting down, the first thought which came up to mind was, it's a budget where it's going to give a lot of employment.
Where do you see that? Can you be more specific?
Any of these where even this fisheries, we specifically mentioned about fisheries, where she's going to bring in rural youth, they're going to give more employment in rural youth. And right at the Gram Panchayat level, which is going to create data centers. I guess, considering the age, the demography of the population, vis-a-vis the opportunity, I think that's been well matched. So once executed, it will be good. That's my take. In terms of Part B, obviously there are pointers in terms of the feel-good factors are the dividend distribution tax being abolished. That's a feel-good factor. And the slabs, there are two schemes which she's actually thought through. One is the already existing one in terms of the individual taxpayer. Other one, she's given another scheme.
We will come to that. We'll come to the DDT and individual tax, personal income tax of the income. What's your immediate take on the budget?
I think the entire industry, whether you saw the stock market that's down today, or industrialists or young students, everyone expected there to be something in terms of boosting consumer demand. And that's what's really missing from this budget. Now, you could talk about which category of consumer. There is something here in terms of direct tax, but they muddle that up by taking the exemptions away while reducing the tax rate at the same time. And when you're taking exemptions away, then are you saying that you're not encouraging people to go buy a house because you get a tax exemption on that side? So it's not clean on that part. And even if it was, it's for a very small percentage of the overall population who actually are paying tax. 5.5 crores number of taxpayers that are there today. So the actual population that needed some sort of scheme that would actually help boost demand was the agrarian population, the rural population. And I didn't see anything in this budget for them at all. So to me, it has been an extremely disappointing budget. And at a time when the country really needed the government to step up and put the economy back on the right track. I mean, you mentioned a couple of statistics. I could go on and on about 45 years unemployment, and the most troubling thing of them all, in 40 years, we've never had a fall in consumer demand. It has always been assumed in India that we are a consumption economy that will always grow.
No, the budget,
large number of people.
somewhere the budget seems to acknowledge the fact that there is an admission that the fiscal deficit has gone up. There is an admission clearly, and then there is also an admission that there has been an inflation. So the government seems to be saying somewhere in the budget, may not be very explicitly, but somewhere it is coming along.
I mean, they have admitted towards the end of the budget that the fiscal deficit is 3.8%, which again doesn't take into account the Comptroller Auditor General's own numbers of 5.5% and doesn't take into account off-book debt that they've taken from FCI or ONGC to buy HPCL. I mean, there's so many different exemptions here.
Yeah, so don't you see that? See, they have said 3.5 in the 2021. Right. They have admitted 3.8 this year. Right. But then next year they seem to be going on a contraction. So what is the overall plan? Which way the economy is now? Which direction they're taking? You said there will be a lot of employment.
That's my take.
How is it going to come?
No, it boils down to how they implement it. If they implement it, that is going to be employment. That is my take on this. How well they are going to implement it is the challenge. That's what I said. My opening remarks is that it is going to be a challenge to implement it. If it is done, employment is going to come in. Across sectors, that's my take. Because not only fisheries, quite a few sectors where she's laid out, there are employment opportunities. And that has to be capitalized. And I guess maybe she's not explicit. She will be more explicit in terms of
Come on,
numbers.
it's been 2.5 hours.
very
Speaks the
explicit.
longest.
No. In terms of numbers, she would have been more specific.
Yes.
It was not very specific. What I meant is explicit in terms of numbers was not very specific. There's a lot of talk, but the numbers could be more specific. That's okay.
Yeah, man.
And what I feel is that, see, if you want to increase, demand, and if you want to increase somebody's consumption, one of the best ways to do it is to give them a job. And that's what this budget has done. It's not just like giving you money and saying you don't buy. That's not what consumption is. How do you increase consumption? By giving them a job, by giving them incentives to do something. And even still, we do have affordable housing. So affordable housing, it's not that, see, if I want to buy a house, I'm not going to buy because the government is giving me some small percentage of incentive. My housing is one of the basic needs for a human being, just like your clothing and food and all that. So these consumption, some of the consumption, that's why we look at the CPI, because some of these basic consumption commodities, whoever it may be, whichever tax bracket you may fall into and whatever your lifestyle may be, you need it. You have to buy those things. If the government gives certain incentives, maybe you will buy more or you might buy less. That's all. And it may or may not be, I'm not even sure about that, because if I want to buy a house, I'll still go and buy it if I love it, if I love the way it looks and where
No,
it
so
is,
you
I'll
think
still
this,
buy it.
but there was a certain lack of confidence among the people. They were not willing to consume. They were holding back the urge to buy or go to
No,
market.
it's,
So
I mean,
is
it's not,
this budget
I
address
believe-
that?
I feel that, see, we have come to a saturation point. You can't keep on consuming forever, right? Now we have, if you are looking at some of the data and saying that consumption, data is, it's really all-time low and all that. See, some of the reasons could also mean you need to look at the population demography, and you need to compare. You can't just look at one data and just come to a conclusion. You need to compare between different data sets to see where the correlation is and what is affecting what. What is influencing the other factor. So I feel, from my point of view, I believe that if the consumption has come down, it could also mean, one is we have come to a saturation point, number one. Number two is that, it could be that there might be some inflation. There is inflation, I have no doubt about that, especially with vegetable prices. Now, what is the best way of doing that? And that's what she has addressed. She has given so much of importance to agriculture, cold storage, transportation. She has put in all that because Why? To bring down the prices of agricultural products and to increase the
no,
yield.
but the point here is, you're saying that she has done a lot for agriculture, and the budget seems to think that it will double the farmers' income. I mean, there's one promise which they've been repeatedly making, but that could happen only when the agriculture production actually goes up. It isn't a very tough call. There is a certain limit with agriculture.
No,
and historically, if you look at data, I think
Can I just button there? I mean, agriculture growth has not moved beyond 3%, has stayed within 3% over the last 6 years. It needs to grow at 10% to hit that target. So that's not going to happen. Similar for the 5 trillion economy that they're talking about. I mean, it's just basic math here. What percentage you need to grow in to get to that number? And we are nowhere near that. So, I mean, there's not even, and it's not, that's what I say when the budget sometimes is so disappointing that they're not recognizing that. She's just monotonically saying the same numbers and not recognizing the fact that we're so far away from that goal. And there's nothing here that's going to help us get there. If we don't consume, we're not going to grow. That is the heart of our growth right now. Our exports are down. Am I right? Private investment is down. Electricity consumption is down. Core sector things, there's not a single metric you can come up with today that's not down. And we still have 600 million people, below the poverty line that we need to lift up.
But what she also said is that the number of people who are below the poverty line, there are, I think, 2 million or so have come out of
221 million have come out over a period of time.
So, Ratin Roy has made this argument, which is what I said in my introduction also, which is that, to her point on saturation, that maybe the model of growth that we've adopted so far in this country has hit a sort of ceiling, if you will, where 300 million or so have already bought all the fridges and the ACs and the cars and the things they need to. And we need to actually figure out a way to bring the rest of the population up so we could, give a boost to this economy. We can't say, no, we're done.
Right.
That's not the answer. Which is why I pointed to rural consumption and saying that where in this budget are we going to boost rural consumption? By giving someone, I'm sorry to interrupt you, by giving someone an apprenticeship for 1 year in the local body, you're not giving him a job. I know tons of young engineers who went to work as apprentices in Hyundai's factory here, which is part of the deal when they came, and are still sitting jobless. That's not a job.
No. See, the importance of coming up with internship programs and coming up with, that's another thing. I mean, we'll come to that.
No,
But
so
if we come to rural,
we'll come to that. See, the point which I'm again asking you is there, is it sum of many parts? Is that how one should read this budget?
yes.
And you don't see any one large,
No. See, you need to take it from like a more global perspective. If you're going to look at, has she given, where is the consumption? I mean, it's more an effect. It's going to have a snowballing effect. It's not going to be something that's going to immediately have an effect tomorrow or day after. It's going to have a snowballing effect over a period of time. So it will take some time.
Will the 12 months be enough for that?
God, no, I don't think so.
Authorities,
so.
I can't say.
Well, in the long run, everybody's dead. No, I want to get on to you. Well, I want to go to taxes. So do you think, tax actually, is direct tax been simplified here?
I should say yes, I don't know. But in terms of prima facie, it looks good. But then giving options, you either go to option 1 or option 2, the past one or what is proposed. I guess what impact it's going to have is people are going to think twice in terms of whatever little investments or savings they make earlier in terms of insurance, in terms of investment in housing, whatever little they were doing in terms of insurance. What was earlier considered as a tax benefit, now they will do a cost benefit analysis to that and then get into a savings mode, which I think is not too healthy in terms of reducing taxes. But then the others in terms of dividend distribution tax, incentivizing foreign investments, I guess those are all very, very good impactful changes, which will definitely have a very positive impact.
Do you think it will bring in investment, all the measures which have been announced as far as taxation is concerned in the budget? I'm talking about more direct tax for corporates, PPP.
So dividend distribution tax will certainly come. I think there's low yields across the world right now, and so there's foreign money that wants to come in and search for high yields. I wish they had done more in terms of lifting the investment cap in bonds to beyond 15%, because I think there's a lot of money that would have come in there. they stopped short of that. It's just sort of a halfway measure.
Okay, so just one more question before we wrap up. What do you think about the non-tax revenue? Basically, they've gone for a huge disbursement target this time.
I mean, they went to RBI last year, they're going to LIC this year, and I don't know if they'll ever be able to sell
No,
anything.
the RBI, they're going to go again this year.
They're going to go again this year, and the LIC, I think together they would make up the disinvestment target. I think.
But what is
it's
that
very-
they're going to do about LIC? Could you read something? There's only one sentence about it.
Yeah, see,
So,
I
setting-
don't know much, but what I have understood is that I think I don't believe in the government running businesses. You know, if it's something like Air India or LIC or your BSNL or whatever, I think they have to be in private hands for greater efficiency, because there's no way that what
No, in
other
India, LIC is not just about insurance. It's something more than that.
Yeah, it is more than that. I know it is also, it helps the government also in many ways.
LIC spent 24 lakh crores up till now in infrastructure.
Yes, yeah, I understand that, but see, maybe they don't. That's why they're not giving up LIC like the way they're giving up on Air India or.
No, again, I don't think there is any clarity on that. How do they want to go about it? Because
I
just
think
an
it's just a
announcement,
small
if
part of LIC that they want to privatize.
Stake sale.
Yeah, it's only a small
they-
stake
it's
is what she
specific,
said.
No, she said it's a stake sale. That's what she mentioned. She didn't mention a good percentage. It's nothing.
She didn't mention the percentage, but from what I gathered was it is a small stake only to get some money out of it. I don't think its purpose is to lose control or to lose the benefits that they derive from it, but only to get money out of it for their spending.
Okay, let's go on a concluding round. How do you see the budget after listening to them? Are you convinced?
Well, I remain unconvinced of the potential of this budget to have any real impact on the economy and turn it around.
For me, it's a 50-50. I still stand by what I said in the opening remarks. I'll just add one thing to what has happened in this tax, what is proposed in terms of minimizing litigations. I think that's a very important thing, which is again, she's given a timeline of 31st of March 2020. And those people who are litigants, whatever might be the same litigation, whatever taxes, disputed taxes are paid, I mean, they're going to get okay. Just pay the tax and go on, no penalty and no interest. And with a levy of a small amount, which has not been mentioned, that period will get extended up to 30th June. I guess that again is a very positive step. There's 4.83 lakh cases, what she mentioned, as pending as cases. I think that's a very important thing that she's done. So for me, overall, it's a decent budget. I will not go gaga about it. For me, again, implementation is the key. That's it.
I think the budget is very comprehensive, as I earlier said, and there's a lot of emphasis on rural development, agricultural growth, and women and children, and medicine and hospitals, and even skilling, education, and so on. So, as he said, if it's implemented very well and with the ability to get as much money as she has, she claimed that she would be able to get from different sources, then this is a good budget.
Okay, as usual, it comes down to how even if the intentions are good, how well it will be implemented. Thank you for being with us on this discussion.